Hi, my name is Bianca Cefalo, and I am a rocket scientist, which means I am an aerospace and astronautics engineer. At the moment, I work as a space systems product manager at Airbus Defence and Space, and I work on telecommunications spacecraft innovation. Today, I want you to come with me on a little journey to the outer space. My passion for space and for engineering started when I was a little child. I was about 7 years old when I was fascinated by the job that my father would do. So my dad was an engineer, and he also didn't have high education as well. So I'm not coming from a background where I was already into engineering. I had actually no idea about it, but I was in love with the job that my dad did. He was a mechanic. So since I was a child, I was surrounded by cars, by spare parts, engines, oil everywhere. I used to stay hours in the garage with him, looking at how it would work on the cars and how everything would fit together. And it was just mesmerizing. But most of all, I could see how my dad enjoyed his work, how happy he was mounting cars or dismantling them, understanding, explaining every little piece, how actually they would make the machine work. So I actually had a question since I was a child. I was wondering, what could I possibly do when I grew up so that, first of all, I could work on machinery, so I could be the wizard as much as my dad is, and at the same time do a job that actually will make me have fun, since until the very days of my work, as much as my dad is having. So I thought, okay, I need to understand, I don't want to be really a mechanic, but what could I do? So the little hint of engineering came into my mind. Also, it has to be said that I was born in Italy, so I'm original Italian. I was born in the south of Italy, Naples. And during Sunday, the very usual Italian Sunday lunch, our ritual was to watch Formula One, so race cars. Again, cars were coming into my daily habits, and again there was this major passion now for what it was the challenge, big problems that needed big solution, the pressure, how much a team together had to make happen whilst these pilots were having the race at the same time on the racetrack. There was this all adrenaline going on. So I was kind of making my little pieces together. At the same time, though, I have to say that being surrounded by cars was not the only point that actually made me become an engineer and then a rocket scientist. My mom has always been a makeup artist. She's been always the creative of our family, the one that would just make things happen beautifully out of nothing. And when I used to watch her, how she was she was creating her makeup for her clients, I would love the colors. I really would love, I would fall in love with the craft of what she was creating. So I had to blend somehow the technology, the adrenaline, the speed, the pressure of working, for instance, on a Formula One car, like a Ferrari, together with the creativity, the colorful side of it, the intangible beauty of something that is coming out of nothing, like a makeup, a makeover of a person, was fantastic, was outstanding. I had to blend these things together. So I realized the more I was watching Formula One cars, the more I realized, watching especially at what would happen behind the scenes, when they were talking about testing a car, designing a cars, one thing that actually really was the moment where I was, this is what I need to do. I was watching a documentary about aerodynamics, and I was watching the way the cars will be tested into a wind tunnel. So when they are tested in a wind tunnel or they are simulated through a software, when you simulate fluid dynamics or aerodynamics, you could actually see the airflow around an object. And the velocity and the temperature of that airflow is a colorful scale. It's beautiful to watch. It's, again, mesmerizing. So I actually realized that what I wanted to become was an expert in aerodynamics, because it had the beauty of the creativity and the colorful and the intangible with the technology. So how could I possibly be an expert in aerodynamics? That was my other question. So I went up to the website of my university. I studied in Naples, Federico II. And actually, I went through all the different levels of engineering to really understand what's the subject here that has to do with aerodynamics, fluid dynamics, something like that. I want to be one of those. I want to study. I want to understand everything about it. And the only one that actually had that subject was aerospace engineering. So I said, okay, I'm going to be an aerospace engineer. When I actually told my parents and everyone at home and in my city or wherever, my friends, that I wanted to become an aerospace engineer, everyone was like, whoa, that's a big thing. No one here has actually been to the university. Are you really sure? Do you think that is not too much of a male environment? So it was the moment where I was actually getting into, yes, this is exactly what I want to do. I feel it in my core. I feel this is my path. This is going to be my future. But then I was actually being confronted with the reality of my place and the usual society conditionings, stereotypes. Anytime I say I'm a rocket scientist, no one actually believes that, because women, especially when they don't fit into any kind of scientific stereotype, usually they are associated to something which is fashion, designing, music, whatever. So for many people around me, it was really difficult to understand why on earth would you want to be an aerospace engineer? First of all, because no one had ever been at university in my family. So I was the first one actually choosing that kind of education, but also one of the most complex things to do. So I actually told myself, the way I was motivating myself was actually that no one has done it before. I am a kind of provocation to all the stereotypes. I don't fit into any of the boxes that everyone would tick as a scientist. So I just have to break all these generational beliefs, all these conditionings, and I just have to keep going. Because it's not only because I have to prove a point, but it is because actually this is the life I want, and it's not going to be affected by the other people's opinion. So this is what I did. I studied aerospace engineering, and it was definitely a complex subject, but I loved it so much that for me it was a pleasure to study. And the more I would study aerospace engineering, and actually I had the pleasure also to get, let's say, a tick on one of my dreams. So when I was studying, during my master degrees, I founded a Formula student team, which is actually a smaller scale of a Formula One team, where you are designing your own Formula One car, you are going to a competition, and you win or not. So we also ranked third winners at that competition for our first year. So that was one of my biggest achievements. But after that, when I moved on to my master degree, I realized that actually my passion from aerodynamics was getting on an extra level, was getting from the ground station of Formula One cars to aircrafts, and then to something that was a little bit onto the outer space. And this was thanks to one of my favorite subjects, that was hypersonic aerodynamics. When I started studying that subject, I actually realized that I could apply aerodynamics to objects coming or flying through the atmosphere, especially when you think about launchers, when you think, we have watched very, very recently the launch of two American astronauts, thanks to the SpaceX Falcon 9. And actually, with hypersonic aerodynamics, I could work on fluid dynamics and aerodynamics simulations and testing of such vehicles that were crossing the atmosphere and then they were coming back through the atmosphere to be collected on Earth. So I said, wow, that was mind-blowing. I didn't really know there was such a subject. So I started to become more and more interested into that. And thanks to that passion I had to this very, very niche subject I wanted to study, during my master degrees, I was looking for a placement abroad. Because first of all, I really wanted a hands-on job. And also I wanted to move away from Italy because I wanted to integrate into new culture, understand how it would be really to work in a different country, learning a new language. And I wanted to do that since I was very young. So during my master degrees, when I was studying hypersonic aerodynamics and then space aerodynamics, microgravity, all these subjects that actually had a lot to do with the outer space, an offer came across. Well, actually, an email. It was during a summer night, actually. It was in August 2013. One of my professors, it was my tutor at the time, he sent me across these emails saying, actually, look at this. This guy coming from Berlin, Germany, is looking for this specific profile. The profile was an expert in aerothermofluid dynamics for a new Mars mission. And the Mars mission was sponsored by NASA. I looked at the email and my professor asked me, so do you know anybody who actually could fit this kind of skill set? I thought about it a couple of seconds and I said, of course, that's me. So here is when actually my rocket scientist journey starts. After I received the email, I had an interview in a couple of days. I packed all my stuff, all my life. I moved to Germany and I worked on the NASA JPL Inside Mars mission. That was my very, very first project, coming from the moment where nobody thought I could be an aerospace engineer to working as a first project on a NASA Mars mission. That was something that if I go back and if I could talk to my teenager self, I would say, you keep going. If they are telling you you can't do something, keep doing it. It's your duty, because what is outside, what it is on the other side of this resistance, of this social and cultural conditioning, is much greater than the place where you are here. So that was my very, very first mission. It was for the HP Cube instrument, which is an instrument that was developed by the German Space Agency. And it's been deployed on Mars in 2018. And now it's there, drilling the surface of Mars to actually detect the temperature of the soil of Mars and understanding if there is anything that could possibly resemble Earth, what kind of materials there are there, what's the activity of that planet. Because after all, we want to understand as humans if and how and when we will be able to actually settle on other planets. So that was my very first project. And that was my breakthrough into rocket science. After 5 years, I spent in Berlin, and I had an amazing experience, both professionally and personally. I traveled a lot, met people coming from everywhere, learned so much from project management to communication, public speaking, designing, spacecraft, thermal systems, fluid dynamics, system engineering, all of it. Then, more than 2 years ago, I had another major opportunity that made me move again. So from Italy, I moved to Germany, and then after that, I moved to London, where I'm actually living now. And my change to my life in London came exactly with my new job, which is system product manager at Airbus Defence and Space, where now I work on telecommunications spacecraft that are the systems that are actually enabling us to have satellite communication, which means internet, Wi-Fi, GPS, broadband, broadcast, TV, radio, Instagram, TikTok, Google Maps, everything that you are using on a daily basis on our smartphones, that's all enabled thank you to space technology. Thank you to telecommunication spacecraft that are actually orbiting around the Earth at the same speed the Earth is orbiting around its axis. And I must say that if I could go back in time, I would choose to become an aerospace engineer 100 million times again. Because being an engineer, and in my case, being a rocket scientist actually, is giving me the possibility to change the way humanity is living on this planet and beyond, to change the way we are communicating, to shape the way we are contributing to our evolution. If you think about without space telecommunication, without space technology, we wouldn't know about the moon. We wouldn't know about the stars. We wouldn't know about the solar systems. We wouldn't know about anything that is beyond our homes. So what I want to tell you is that being an engineer, it's something that will give you the opportunity to change the world for the better. And I wouldn't say only the world, I would say the universe. You can be the change if you want to. And whatever you want to do, whatever is your passion, don't let anyone tell you you can't do something, because you can be exactly who you want, and you can be the one who makes your mission happen for the greater good of humanity.